Hi everyone, I'm Tanvir Nasir, and this is Leadership Biz Cafe, a podcast that looks at some of the challenges leaders face today and what you can do about it to ensure you succeed at driving your organization's efforts forward. Leadership Biz Cafe is brought to you by Tanvir Nasir Leadership, our leadership firm that offers both keynotes and corporate training events on a variety of leadership topics. To learn more, visit our company's website at tanvirnasir.com. And let's talk about how we can help bring in valuable insights and practical tools to help your organization succeed in achieving its goals. Now, I'd like to share with you some wonderful comments shared on Twitter by one of my listeners, Bonnie Kaiser. Bonnie has been a big supporter of this show on Twitter and has said many wonderful things about this podcast. One of the tweets Bonnie posted on Twitter about this show was, "One of my all-time favorite podcasts for leaders. Dives deeper into topics, and I always walk away with a gem." As well as this one. "I set short and long-term goals. This month my goal was to listen to a podcast each day. I found that over half the podcasts I listened to were at Tanvir Nasir. Thank you for podcasts on leadership, which are for everyone, no matter what your career path is." Now, I know I thanked you already on Twitter, but I wanted to just shout out another thanks to you, Bonnie, for the kind words and for being such a great supporter of this show. Again, these reviews are really important as they do help us get the attention of future sponsors, which can help us put out even more episodes of this show. So please do take a moment to rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts so we can continue to bring you insights on how you can succeed at leadership. Okay, so now let's get into another edition of Leadership Espresso Shot. As listeners of my leadership podcast, you may not know that in addition to giving leadership keynotes and running corporate training sessions, I've also been writing an award-winning leadership blog for more than 10 years. And given that long duration, I'm sure it comes as no surprise that I've covered a wide range of topics and issues around how to succeed at leadership. One topic in particular that I've both written and spoken about extensively is the importance of engendering a sense of purpose in what we do. In fact, it's the topic of my TED Talk, which you can find on TED's YouTube channel. But oftentimes, in our discussions of finding a sense of purpose in what we do, we often overlook a critical element to this process, namely of what dreams we have of what we'd like to do, create, or accomplish. Now, while this might seem to be just a play on following our passions, I want to challenge that assumption by pointing out that when it comes to discussions about following our passions, invariably we're talking about something that's already feasible for us to do. We just need to give ourselves that push to take that first step. But when it comes to talking about our dreams, we're not talking about what's feasible, but rather what's possible. Or better still, what others might think to be impossible, but which we believe or know we can transform into reality. Think back to the story I shared in my first Leadership Espresso Shot that revolved around the Apollo space program. Today we look back on it as a marvel of human engineering and ingenuity, but in its time it was seen as pure folly, an unrealistic dream that's too far beyond our reach to attain. Of course, in today's business world, any notion of the role dreams play in the work we do tends to be limited to initiatives revolving around innovation and creativity, of dreaming up a new or better product or service offering. And yet, as we've come to appreciate over the past few years, innovation is not something you limit to a department or team. Rather, it should be something that every single one of your employees should be thinking about, not only to ensure your company's continued success and growth, but its enduring relevance in a world in constant change and evolution. Sure, the constant rush of urgencies demanding our attention, focus, and resources can make it easy for us to delegate dreaming as a skill to those creative types on our team, while we as leaders focus more on viewing the world through a more pragmatic, practical lens. And yet, as I shared in the first two editions of Leadership Espresso Shot, Your job as a leader is not only to create and consistently communicate a compelling vision of the future, but to create opportunities for your employees to both bring and do their best work. And what better way is there for us to accomplish both than tapping into the collective dreams and hopes of those you lead? Indeed, just as with our passions, it's important that we recognize that our dreams serve as both our inspiration and our drive to continue despite the long odds. After all, why else would so many people buy lottery tickets despite knowing the slim chances they have to win? It's not simply the win that they're after, but what that win would mean for their lives in terms of giving them the opportunities they might not otherwise have. And there's also been numerous studies, articles, and books that have pointed out how our ability to be motivated by financial rewards is finite. And what really drives us to persevere and succeed is connecting our actions to something which provides a sense of purpose and meaning. But if we don't dream of what if, of what truly matters to us, how can we possibly reach this renewable source of determination and drive? Perhaps more importantly, as leaders, if you're not working to create a workplace environment or culture where the dreams of those you lead are recognized and understood, how can you create that necessary shift from focusing on what you collectively do to why you do it, in order to engender that sense of inner purpose that will fuel your employees to keep pressing ahead to make your vision a reality, despite whatever challenges or obstacles lie before them? In both my writings and in my speaking engagements, I've often pointed out the importance of building relationships with those you lead to not only better understand the needs of your employees, but to gain insights into what matters to them and how to connect that to what matters to your organization. And if you want to go that one step further where your employees become the best and brightest out there, you need to encourage them and support them to bring their dreams to work. Specifically, I'm referring to those dreams all of us have of making a difference in the contributions we make, of knowing that what we do matters beyond ourselves. As a leader, you have both the means and the responsibility to build and promote a culture that encourages employees to imagine what could be instead of limiting themselves to what is. Now, I've had the pleasure of speaking at organizations that are already accomplishing this, and it's always inspiring to hear employees talk about some change initiative or innovation they brought forth in the organization because their leaders dared them to dream out loud of how could we do and be better than we are right now. And I could tell you quite honestly, I leave these organizations feeling a little bit envious of the people who work there because of how tangible that sense of belonging and connection is amongst them. Not just for their work and their organization's vision, but to each other. The simple truth is that the world is changing, and it's becoming clear with each passing day that aiming for good enough is no longer enough to succeed and thrive in today's global market. It's no longer enough to help create products or services that people want to use or continue to use. It's no longer enough to ensure you can attract and retain the key talent your organization needs to grow and evolve. And it's no longer enough to ensure your organization's survival in the years ahead. Purpose, empathy, and dreams are no longer concepts and ideas you should look upon as being the ideals of wishful thinking and what-ifs, but as the necessary tools you will need to not only help your organization move forward towards reaching your goals, but to answering the question of why we do what we do. Which is why I want to leave you with this quote from Walt Disney, a leader who clearly understood the power of dreams and how they can lead to enduring successes. As Walt said, if you can dream it, you can do it. Always remember that this whole thing was started by a mouse. And with that, we come to the end of another Leadership Espresso shot. And that's a wrap on this episode of Leadership Biz Cafe, brought to you by Tavern Nasir Leadership. Looking for a keynote speaker or corporate trainer for your next event? Then visit our company's website at tanvernasir.com. That's TANVERNASEER.com to find out how we can bring these kinds of leadership insights to your organization, either at an upcoming conference, leadership retreat, or for a corporate training event. Now, if you have any questions or comments, drop me a note through the contact form on my website, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or wherever you find and listen to this show. As I mentioned earlier, these reviews provide an important benefit for this show and to helping us bring more episodes to help improve the way you lead. And just a quick reminder that you can find the show notes for this and past episodes, as well as links to subscribe to the show on our podcast page at tavernasir.com/LBC. I'm Tavern Nasir, and you've been listening to Leadership Biz Cafe.